So in this video, we're just going to be going over Unreal Engine sequencer and just going over the absolute basics and must knows to actually use the sequencer. So it's going to be kind of like a high level in-depth tutorial, but we're not going to be going over rendering and the curve editor in this video. We're going to be going over that in another video because it's an in-depth subject as well. But for now, we'll just get into the subject. Let's go. So up here is how we create a new animation or a new sequence, a shot or a master sequence, which is just a sequence with other shots inside it. So we come up here to this little thing. We can add a level sequence with shots. Right now, we're just going to add a single level sequence. We're just going to do one single animation to explain the basic principles. So if we come here, we'll call this shot 1. We're just going to make a new folder called shots. Save it there, shot 1, save. And you'll see it opens us up inside the sequencer right here. And at the minute, we don't have any cameras in the scene, so we don't have anything to look through for the sequence. To do this, we can just simply add a camera to the track by coming over to here and click track, actor to sequence, and then pick the camera if you already have a camera. If you don't have a camera, we can add one into the scene by coming up to here, come into cinematics, come into cine camera actor, and then just dragging one into the scene, pulling it up. And now we have it over here in the outliner. We can grab it and just bring it with us into the sequence. Boom. Once it's in the sequence, we'll be looking through it. If you're not looking through it, this little icon here is to pilot it. So it allows you to look directly through that specific camera. The one at the top is the entire shot. So it will switch between any camera that's on the track. So if we have 4 cameras below it and we're viewing the top one like this, it will switch between all 4 depending on where they are in the shot. If we have the lock to this one, we'll only be viewing that specific camera. Camera cuts between all the cameras. The cine camera actor will just view the specific shot. So we'll keep it piloted for here and now. We're at frame 0 and we'll turn around and we'll line it up whichever way we want the camera to be. So let's say we want this shot here. We just line it up like this and we're going to add a transform key at 0, and now that means that this is at frame 0, the camera will be at here. And now what we can do is we can move it forward, let's say to 120 frames or wherever we want it to be zoomed in, and we can come in here and just add another keyframe. And now we have this little bar. This bar is a retiming bar, so this just scales with the distance between the 2 keyframes. Obviously, the shorter the bar is, the faster the animation's going to go because it's less time is going to pass on the timeline. So we'll just scale this up right now. And as you see, when we go back through the timeline, we have a zoom. So we can press play. And that's the type of zoom we have. But normally this is kind of easing, so we'll explain the curve editor really quickly as well, right? So these 2 types of keyframes at the minute, if we highlight them and we right click them, they're set to cubic auto. Now that means that the curve is going to look like this, where it's like an S curve. So it eases into the curve and then eases back out of the curve. So at the beginning of the animation and at the end of the animation, it's going to ease. But if we literally, let's say, grab these 2 keyframes and we right click and we change them to linear, we'll see now it's always constant. It's the exact same. There's no easing. It doesn't change velocity or anything or direction in any way. It just starts and it just consistently goes the same pace. So now you'll see when we replay the animation, it's just a still, steady animation. And so that's just one camera in this one shot. And here's another thing, right? So at the minute, we can extend the timeline as long as we want by just grabbing this part. And that's cool. We can extend it or whatever. Boom. And we can do the same if we wanted the animation to go on longer. We can extend this and then it'll be even slower. The animation will be. So now let's say we have this basic animation that comes back through this camera, right? But we want to make another shot and we want to put these two shots in one sequence. Yeah. How do we do that? Well, first of all, we'll come down to shots just here, right click, cinematics, level sequence. We can call this the master sequence. So it's going to hold all our other shots. Then we open up this master sequence and we'll see it's moved thing because we're no longer in the other sequence. It's a complete different camera now. We have this sequencer shot to make sure that this is a master sequence that we can put more shots on top of. We can just click track. We can click shot track. So then we have a shot track where we can put shots on top of. It makes sense now. Click content browser and you'll see when we get shot one even, we're able to put shot one straight onto the timeline like this. And then now if we literally, let's say we use our ins and outs here down here, this is another thing to be aware of. See, if we want to make it a lot smaller so we can view more of the timeline, we can pull this up. And this is one really important thing here now. So we still have the camera cuts track, which is just going to essentially make us view each shot as the timeline goes, the playhead goes along it. But one really important thing is see the way the timeline ends here in the master sequence now. If we come inside the shot by double clicking and we come to the end and we try to extend the shot, you'll notice you can see it straight away down here. If we try to extend the shot, we can't extend it further. This bit won't move. That's because it's too short in the master sequence in the shot track. So if you come over here to master and master, and then it brings you back to the master sequence, which is the level above. This is a nested shot inside this sequence, and we extend this, then you can come in and pull the shot the whole way forward to the end. See, there's the red line that used to be there. Come back in and you can see that the red line's gone. We can literally pull it as far as we want. So you can see it's the whole way down here now, and we can move it down to there. So you can come back to the master sequence and you can see we can make the shot as long as we want. Now we obviously don't want the shot this long. We can just pull this back and get back to adding a second shot. So we can come back to the content browser, right click, cinematics, new level sequence, and then just call this shot 2. And so now we have shot 2. We can open up shot 2 and we can literally change direction, or we can do whatever we want. Let's say we want to do something out here like this, and we'll just add a new track. We'll actor to sequencer. We can do any camera, it doesn't matter, because we can use the same camera in different level sequences and it doesn't affect the first camera because they're separate level sequences. So we can just track the same camera. And now that we have this, we can just add a keyframe again, come to like 130, wherever. We can just move in and maybe into a rotation like this, and then add another keyframe. And now we come back and you'll see this is the animation we have. We have this movement here like this. So that's fine. We have that. And again, we can just come back to the content browser and we can come into the master sequence. And now we have here, we'll just trim the shot back to where it actually ends at the minute. Come to the content browser, drag shot 2 into the sequencer and put it right next to the shot 1. And so now we can see this, and when we use the little camera thing right here, because it'll view all these shots now, we click this and we press play, you'll see we get the first shot, zoom in, second shot, and the second shot needs to be fixed badly because it's got all that easing going on. So we can just double click in, come to our keyframes, highlight our 2 keyframes, right click, click linear, and what we want to do this time is probably drag it out way further than the thing. And again, in the master sequence, it's too short. So we have to go back to the master sequence. We have to extend the shot further. Extend the shot further. And now we can extend this shot way further as well. And we can bring the ins and outs way down so we have full control over this end. And we'll bring it out to here, and we'll bring this out to about there. And now we can drag our keyframe little slider and retime it to there. And now we'll get a nice, slower, more consistent animation the whole way throughout than what we did get the first time. What shot we're in right here. Again, you want to come back to master. And now we see we've got 2 shots lined up, and you can do the same again. We can just create a new shot. Use the same camera if you want multiple times. So let's say we want to add some light here to match the HDRI, and we want to also animate the light. What we're going to do first of all is add some light. So we'll come to lights, directional light. Now that we have a directional light, we can press Control L to move the light around. So we might want to just tune that in to wherever we want, get something interesting. This is very bright at the minute. So what we might do is come to our light. Then we might want to just bring the intensity down to like 4. We might want to bring the warmness. We won't use color though. We're going to use temperature instead. So we click use temperature. And we're going to just bring that down a little small bit. We can select the directional light in the outliner. We can come to track, actor to sequencer, and you'll see add directional light or whatever's selected in the thing. So if I wanted to track all these objects, I could select them all, and I wanted to animate them all. I could select them all, click track, actor to sequencer, and it's going to say add current selection, all 5 actors. So we don't need to, we're not going to animate these right now, but that's just a quick example of how you can select multiple actors and track them all onto the sequencer quite quickly. Another option is we can just grab the directional light in the outliner and we can just drag it straight onto the track, and then that'll track it to the track. And then once we have it there, we can animate stuff like the intensity. So let's say we want it to start at like 0.2, we can add a keyframe and we can move it forward to literally the end, and we can make the intensity more intense and then add another keyframe. And now you'll see what happens is the light gets brighter throughout. And the same for direction. So let's say we want to do direction of the light. We can just come to directional light. We click add. We add a transform. And we just set a transform here at the top. We're going to drag the sequencer up a little tiny bit. We add a transform key at the start. We can come down. We can just come to the end. We can use Control L. So we put the cursor in the viewport. Control L. And then let's say we want to rotate around to here. And then we can add another transform. Underneath the directional light transform, add another key. And here we go now. What you'll see is we're going to get a dim light at the start of the animation that rotates around and gets brighter. So, and we can do this for objects as well. So that's just the light animating. If we wanted to move objects, so let's say we come inside here for a second. Come inside, we have something like this. What we'll do now is we're going to move the couch at 0. Grab the couch, Control plus 2 mouse button, and we can just put it out of view. Add a key. Well, first of all, since it's still selected, we don't have it in the timeline yet, so we can click track, actor to sequencer, add the current selection. Now the current selection is on the track. We can click track, transform, add a transform key, because we want to add a transform right at the beginning when the couch is out of frame. And then as the light comes in, we want the couch to be in frame. So we still have the couch selected. We can press Control plus both mouse button again, bring it back down, and then add another key. And now what you'll see is we have rotating light that goes from dim to bright, and also an animation of a piece of furniture coming in. And we're going to add the scale keyframe at the start, and we're going to come to the end. And now you can see what happens is it's going to get bigger and come down, and the light's going to rotate and get brighter. So this is a bunch of ways we could just keep adding multiple things and making crazy animations by just adding keyframes to objects, tracking them to the track, and messing around with them. Now lots of these are still eased, as we said earlier. We can highlight them all, we can right click, we can put them to linear if we want them all to be just consistent throughout, so there's no easing. So that's the sequencer done at a pretty high level. If you want more in-depth tutorials about the sequencer, drop a comment down below, ask any questions, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible.